Hi, I'm Brandy. This is Hound Dog Hollow, and today I'm going to be doing one of my um, last three astrology series lives. And by last three, I just basically mean that in the year upcoming, I'd like to focus on maybe a different thing. So basically, what I'm doing is getting it on my phone, so that way it's faster for me. For whatever reason, it it comes up quicker on my phone than it does here. So basically, hello. So we're covering the houses of astrology. I have already covered the fundamentals. I have covered the the zodiac, the planets, and today we're going to do the houses. The next one is going to be the natal chart itself and like aspects and things like that. And then the final one is just going to be like where you can go from there, how to do a deeper dive, and resources that I've used and things like that. And then we'll basically be done with astrology on my channel for a bit. I want to focus on something else. I haven't yet decided what I'm going to be looking at next year. I'm treading water here, right? Just surviving. But I will say that I am definitely looking to be like tons of stuff. I'm so interested in so many things. So let's. Do you need something with it?
Yeah, do you have like a folder?
A folder? All of my school supplies are in like a box on the little table in the bedroom, against the wall under the tree thing. Hi, Star Gypsy Soul. Oh my gosh, my husband can't without me, which I guess is flattering. So basically, you probably see in the description, there's a link to things that I'm going to be using, and it's the same things I use in my astrology journey thus far. So Astrology for Yourself is my hands down favorite. And the only astrology book you'll ever need is pretty good too. Lots of good information. We have The Stars Within You. Very, very good. I also have a couple other books that I'm not going to be covering today. So Magical Astrology, Chinese Astrology, and Momstrology. And the main reason is they're not as pertinent to what I'm talking about today. Let me see. Oh no. Poop. I left my pen uncovered. I hate that. But the good news is I just bought more yesterday. So this is more of like the application, which is super great and pertinent. I'm kind of in the mode right now of like learning. So actually, I'm going to toss that back over there. So I'm going to start with this book, actually. The Stars Within You. And it talks about the houses. So just very briefly, right? The zodiac, the planets. Hi, Lori. The zodiac, the planets, and the houses all interact with each other. So if the hold on, I'm trying to find my page here. Hold on here. So basically, and of course, I just took my finger out of it and I completely lost my spot. Hold on. The houses are where the energies of the zodiac and the planets that are in your personal natal chart take place. They're different departments or segments of our lives. They're like scenes in a play or rooms in your house or just different segments of life. And the way that you express that is your planet and the zodiac sign. So, and that is a different live, which we've covered. Oh my gosh, I've been working at this desk since 7 in the morning. And so I'm just like all over the place. Okay, there we go. So basically, I'll just start. Where we direct our energies, the houses. After learning about the planets and signs, we now reach the third building block of the astrology, the houses. While the planets and signs represent innate facets of ourselves, how we think, love, and feel, the houses are areas in life where we apply these energies. The 12 houses represent 12 categories of life that originated over 2,000 years ago in the Babylonian times. The Babylonians believed that life consisted of a range of activities and domains where we apply ourselves, each correlating with a particular house. Money, creativity, marriage, career, and spirituality were all included in these categories. On a literal level, the house represents position in the skies. The first house begins at the easternmost horizon at the time of our birth. So, just a quick caveat, when you're looking at your natal chart, and you can get a free natal chart at cafeastrology.com or tons of places, just Google free natal chart. My favorite is Cafe Astrology, but your favorite might be something different. It's a circle divided into 12 equal segments, even though your houses are not going to be the same size, but it's just for ease of understanding. And if the circle is a clock, okay, the 9 o'clock position is where the first house is, and then it goes this way. So while the literal first house is typically Aries, your first house is going to start with your rising sign. The moment you first took breath in the world is where your houses begin. And so while traditionally Aries rules the first house, my first house is in Pisces, and yours might be something different. And then it's going to go from the 9 o'clock position all the way around. That's how you read the houses, okay? Let's consider a certain planet, the moon. Where was the moon in the sky at the moment we were born? For me, the 11th house. Was it over our heads to the east? If the moon was on the easternmost horizon or just below it, that means it would fall into our first house. If it were directly below us or slightly west of that, the moon would fall in our 4th house. If it were just above our heads or slightly to the east, it would fall in our 10th house. And it has like a little chart here. So again, like I'm talking about, so this is typically the 9 o'clock position of a clock, and you go around. And then we'll talk more when we talk about the natal chart in the next one. Oh, thank you, Dawn. You're so sweet. But the hemispheres and what lies in each hemisphere also has a meaning. So this hemisphere, and they talk about aspects of our personality as well. And we'll get to the natal chart, which is more of the synthesis of all of this information in the next live. The 12 houses not only correspond with 12 categories of life, but also with the 12 signs. The sign that matches each house is called its natural ruler. Knowing the natural ruler of a house helps to elucidate its meaning. While the house and sign do not hold the exact same meaning, they hold similar qualities. For example, the 2nd house represents money, and its natural ruler is resourceful Taurus. The 7th house represents marriage and partnership, and its natural ruler is romantic Libra. The 10th house represents career, and its natural ruler is industrious Capricorn, right? So just briefly, the 1st house is the house of self. That's Aries. 2nd house, possessions, Taurus. 3rd house, communication, Gemini. 4th house is home, Cancer. And those make sense when you know the zodiac signs like we've gone through previously. These things make sense. The 5th house is creativity, so Leo. The 6th house is service, so Virgo. 7th house is partnership, Libra. The 8th house is sex and death, which is Scorpio. The 9th is philosophy, which is Sagittarius. The 10th is career, Capricorn. The 11th is community, Aquarius. And the 12th is spirituality, which is Pisces. Let's look at a couple planets in the house to clarify how they work. If the sun, which is our basic identity and self, falls in the 7th house of partnerships, we might identify strongly with our relationships. We could be prone to feeling that our confidence depends heavily on validation from our partnerships. If our moon, our planet of emotions, were in the second house of possessions, then luxuries and material security would feel extra into our sense of contentment and emotional well-being. The following chapter outlines the meaning of each house, along with other important features of the zodiac. Don't worry if this feels confusing or abstract at first. The houses become clearer when in weaving everything together, and she's talking about it in her book, which is a really good book. So again, this is another image of the chart. Note how it begins here and it comes around. Also note that while each of the houses are in a pie, evenly segmented, they don't actually appear that way in the natal chart. Most of them will appear that way for the sake of ease of understanding, but again, they are not all the same size. And again, so the first house is self, second is finance and possessions, third is siblings and communication, the fourth is home and the innermost self, the fifth is creativity, pleasure, and romance, sixth is health, work, and service, the seventh is partnerships, relationships, and marriage, the eighth is sex, inheritance, and death, the ninth is philosophy, religion, higher education, and teachers, the 10th is career and reputation, 11 is community, friend groups, and humanitarianism, and the 12th is spirituality, the unconscious, and self-undoing. So let's dive a little deeper. So the first house is the house of self. The natural ruler is Aries. Keywords are self-image, your physical body, your style, your mannerisms, your likes, and your dislikes. The first house rules the self, confidence, and basic expression. Whichever signs and planets fall in the first house indicate how others see us and how we relate to the outside world. The planets that show up in the first house are obvious to everyone we meet. We wear those energies on our sleeve. This house affects the rest of our chart, operating as an entry point into the entirety of our lives and beings. It also represents our body and outward experience, an outward appearance. For example, if the sign Capricorn fell in a person's first house, she would come across as reserved, traditional, and ambitious. If the sun fell in the first house, it would indicate star quality. Hi, Margie. No worries. I actually don't have any planets in my first house. And that doesn't mean that I don't have that energy in my chart. It's still there. It means that it's not a focus. It's not something. If it was a room in my house, it's not a room that I use very often, right? It's kind of a guest room, maybe. The second house is of wealth. It's ruled by Taurus. Keywords are possessions, money and wealth, resources, property and real estate, mastery and self-worth. The second house rules wealth and material possessions. It indicates what will be lucrative for us and how we make money. Many planets in the second house would indicate ample material security, beautiful possessions, and creature comforts. These natives are able to be resourceful and can focus on becoming masters of their trade. They manifest abundance and work toward developing a healthy sense of self-worth. The planets and signs that fall in the second house reveal our relationship to wealth and livelihood. For example, with the sign Libra falling in the second house, one could make money off of art or aesthetic abilities. The planet Jupiter in the second house would indicate luck with manifestation. Also, no planets in my natal chart in the second house. The third house of communication. Natural ruler is Gemini. The keywords are communication, speaking, writing, early education, siblings, aunts, uncles, neighbors, and short trips. So the third house rules communication of all kinds. With many planets in the third house, one could be a writer, teacher, or public speaker. The third house also rules early education and short trips, in addition to siblings, aunts, uncles, and neighbors. Whatever planets and signs fall in this house reveal how we communicate. For example, third house in Cancer would denote a knack for public speaking, the ability to feel into the energy of the room and speak from the heart. Venus in the third house would represent poetic abilities with a halo of beauty surrounding the native's words. I'm just going to really quick grab my notes on the houses too. So I want to make sure that as we go through, I can use my own chart as an example for you guys. But to be honest, I honestly don't remember every single, there we go. Yeah, I don't have anything until the fourth house. And also, I'm one of those people that has a whole bunch of planets in a small area. I have a stellium, meaning that I have a whole bunch in one house, but it's not the earlier houses. All right, there we go. I found my notes. Fourth house is home. Natural ruler, Cancer. Relationship with parents, how you nurture, motherhood, the mother, childhood, innermost self, intimacy, and home life. The fourth house is our innermost realm, our private world that we only sometimes share with others. This is the source of our deepest feelings, intimacy, and nurturing. While the second house rules the tangible home, the fourth house is the feeling of home, as well as familiarity and our mother. It also indicates motherhood in general or how we nurture children. The planets and signs that fall into the fourth house reveal how we relate to intimacy and nurturing. A Leo fourth house would signify someone who is warm and affectionate when they're close to another person. Uranus in the fourth house could mean an unusual relationship with the mother or motherhood in general. So I do have, so my north node, my fourth house is Gemini, so like talking, communication. And I have the north node, and of course everybody has their under sky, which is their IC. So if your midheaven is at the cusp of your 10th house, then your under sky is the opposite. And that's something that we'll talk, that's a whole separate concept, these important angles we're going to talk about in the next live. So your north node, south node, midheaven, your under sky, your part of fortune, aspects, appositions, all of that we'll talk in the next one. It's heavy stuff. And so like we're going to dabble into that, but really that's super personal for each of you. And that's, I think, beyond. So this whole series is more of a 101, maybe leaching into the intermediate, but that's way more into the intermediate. So we won't cover that in the series. But just keep in mind that is what's going to happen. The fifth house, creativity and romance. The natural ruler is Leo. Keywords are creativity, pleasure, children, true love, love affairs, entertainment, where you give your heart and affections. The fifth house is the house of creativity, playfulness, and true love. It is also how we entertain ourselves and what brings us pleasure. With many planets in the fifth house, we would have an abundance of creative energy, playfulness, and affection. We might have many love affairs or lovers throughout our lives, easily diving into joyful romantic expression. The planets and signs in the fifth house reveal how we relate to creativity and love. For example, a Capricorn fifth house can mean making a living off our creative work or relating traditionally to love. Mercury in the fifth house could signify an ability to perform or a tendency to apply our mental abilities towards creative self-expression. I have nothing in the fifth house. Which is funny because so my sixth house is part Leo and part Venus, which is weird. But it is what it is. I'm weird. The sixth house is where like 4 planets are in my chart. Sixth house, service and health. Natural ruler, Virgo. Keywords, health, service, work, and worries. The sixth house rules health, work, and service towards others. It can also reveal what we worry about. With many planets in the sixth house, natives would be high-strung and helpful. Devoted and service-oriented, they apply their energies toward working hard for the benefit of others. The signs and planets that fall in the sixth house tell us about our work ethic and what we devote ourselves to. The sixth house in Aries would indicate a conscientious leader who is humble and unafraid of hard work. Moon in the sixth house reveals a devoted spirit who finds contentment in daily routines and assisting others. So again, for me, I have Leo, Mercury, Venus, my part of fortune in the sixth house. Seventh house, partnership and marriage. Natural ruler is Libra. Keywords, romantic partnerships, husband or wife, marriage, ability to work harmoniously with others, open enemies or adversaries, an ideal partner, and your shadow self. The seventh house rules relationship and marriage. It reveals our shadow selves and ideal partners. Many planets in the sixth house indicate an emphasis on relationships, over-identifying with others, and codependence. Ironically, this house also indicates open enemies. The signs and planets that fall in the seventh house show how we relate to relationships and marriage. For example, Capricorn in the seventh house means that natives tend to marry traditionally. Uranus in the seventh house could mean an unusual approach to love or difficulty stabilizing committed relationships. Who's in Libra? I have Virgo. Oh, Pluto. Eighth house, sex, death, and birth. Natural ruler, Scorpio. Sex, death, inheritance, deep psychological work, birth, rebirth, healing, and mysticism. The eighth house is the house of death, sex, birth, and psychology. Many planets here indicate the push toward deep inner work and transformation. Perhaps these natives would be therapists, shamans, hospice workers, or doulas. Sexuality is emphasized as well as investigation and digging into the hidden aspects of human experience. The planets and signs that fall in the eighth house indicate foremost how we relate to sexual intimacy. For example, Sagittarius in the eighth house would reflect a person who may want to explore sexual intimacy with many people, or at least people from different backgrounds. Mars in the eighth house could lead to a deep sexual nature and powerful desires. Since the eighth house also rules inheritance, the lucky planet Jupiter falling in the eighth house could signify family money. I have Mars and Saturn in the eighth house. Ninth house, philosophy and adventure, ruled by Sagittarius. Philosophy, higher education, adventure, travel to faraway places, religion, exploring of different cultures, teachers, and gurus. The ninth house rules travel to foreign countries, spiritual teachers, and higher education. With many planets in this house, one could feel compelled to travel, live in faraway countries, or seek adventure. A ninth house emphasis could also lead to an academic path, graduate school, or life of a philosophical inquiry. The planets and signs that fall in the ninth house indicate how we relate to religion and philosophy. For example, Aries in the ninth house could reveal a courageous and well-traveled spirit, as well as the willingness to dive headlong into any adventure. Jupiter in the ninth house could signify great achievements when pursuing higher education, the ability to teach, or luck finding a spiritual teacher or inspiring mentors and professors. What do I got there? Uranus, so unconventional. Well, I guess that suits me. 10th house, career and social status, Capricorn, is the natural ruler. Career, social status, the father, fatherhood, ambition, outer responsibility. The 10th house rules career, society, and the father. This is the house that shows us which career will bring success and how we will contribute to society. It also tells us how we perceive our father and how we relate to discipline and tradition. Many planets here would mean we focus our energies on climbing the social ladder, achieving success, and becoming well known. The signs and planets that fall in this house indicate how we relate to career and society. For example, a 10th house in Gemini reflects a soul who can make a living as a writer, teacher, or speaker. Pluto in the 10th house, presence at work, and the potential to achieve tremendous power and fame. Ooh, I have a lot here. Jupiter, Neptune, South Node, and my midheaven. Everybody's midheaven is there, but South Node, of course. 11th house, friends and community, ruled by Aquarius. Groups of friends, community, humanitarianism, clubs, enlightened society, goals, hopes, and wishes. The 11th house rules community, friendship, and humanitarianism. In particular, it tells us about peer groups and the types of friends that we attract. If Cancer falls in our 11th house, we could have many friends who are healers and nurturers. If Mars falls in our 11th house, we could be a leader in our community or a pioneer who fights for humanitarian purposes. Many planets in the 11th house denote an individual who focuses their talents on community, creating enlightened society, bringing people together, and crusading for human rights. I know that in the 11th house is my, my moon is in my 12th house. I was wrong about that. 11th house, I have no planets. The 12th house, spirituality and the subconscious, Pisces. Spirituality, the subconscious, addiction, escapism, karma, psychic abilities, meditation, unconscious energies, photography, film, fantasy, and illusions. The 12th house is traditionally known as the house of self-undoing. It rules addiction, escapism, and our unconscious choice. On the flip side, it also represents spirituality, psychic abilities, and unconditional love. With many planets in the 12th house, someone could feel driven by many subconscious impulses. Choosing to exert this energy towards spiritual pursuits, retreats, or meditation, the same person could go quite far on their spiritual path. Also, ruling film, photography, and spiritual arts, a prominent 12th house could reveal talent in these domains. The signs and planets that fall in the 12th house show what we keep hidden. For example, Pisces in the 12th house can mean unrealized or underdeveloped spirituality. Uranus in the 12th house signifies someone who keeps their eccentricity hidden. So I guess we'll briefly talk about this. The 4-house cusp. So there's the ascendant, so your rising sign. Across from it is the descendant. Then there's the natal, which is the cusp of your 4th house, and then there's the midheaven. So the most significant angles of the charts are the angular house cusps, correlating to the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses. If planets touch these angles, they have particular significance in our lives and beings, and their meaning in our chart is amplified. And so again, it's like a chart here. So the ascendant is our outermost self and our physical appearance. You know it as your rising sign. So mine is Pisces. The descendant is the 7th house cusp, and it's your relationships and marriage. So my descendant is Virgo. Let me double check. I'm going to say it's Virgo. No. Yes, Virgo. Virgo. Okay. The natal or imam kuliye, which is the 4th house cusp, is your innermost self and intimacy. So for me, that's Gemini. And then your midheaven is your career and reputation. And for me, that is Sagittarius. So, and then the houses are divided into hemispheres, like we talked about earlier in this live. The houses are divided into 4 hemispheres quadrants: Eastern, Western, Northern, and Southern. The positions are counterintuitive, corresponding to the opposite hemisphere that we would imagine. The Eastern is the left, the Western is the right, the Northern is the bottom, and the Southern is the top. When looking at a chart, the hemispheric emphasis can be determined by where the majority of planets fall in a person's chart. Each emphasis has different meaning. So the Eastern, so planets on, if you're looking down at the page, on the left side of the page. Love you, Don. Thank you so much for coming. Means you're assertive. People with the majority of planets in the Eastern Hemisphere tend to be self-motivated, demonstrating initiative, independence, and assertiveness. I don't remember where my dominance. Where's my dominance? Oh, I'm a Western. I have 7 planets in the Western Hemisphere. The Western Hemisphere is receptive. It consists of the houses on the right side of the chart. People with the majority of the planets in the Western Hemisphere tend to be more receptive and oriented towards others. So basically, when you have your free chart, divide it in half and count how many of the planets are in each half, and whichever half has the most, that's the dominant side of your chart. And then we do it again for the top and the bottom. So the Northern Hemisphere, which is the bottom, is internal or personal. These are internal and subjective houses with many planets in the Northern Hemispheres. Natives likely to be introverted and private, oriented towards self-improvement and internal development. I am definitely outward focused, so I'm a Southern Hemisphere. So the Southern Hemisphere, which is actually the top, is external and social. We orient towards the collective. With many planets in the Southern Hemisphere, natives are likely to be more extroverted with an emphasis on external events and the public domain. So we'll get into aspects later in the series. This book is really dense. We've talked about it. As a matter of fact, I did a book review on it today, and I go through what everything is in it. So let's see her take. So this one was written in 1982. So some of the language is a bit dated. I'm going to take a bite of cheese because I've been sitting here for 7:30 and I haven't eaten anything today. You're a Pisces, Freedom Girl. Your sun sign, or your moon, or your rising, or multiple times. Do you know? All right. The first house. This is his house of self. It is the most personal and most powerful house in your chart. It symbolizes you, your mannerisms, your style, your disposition, and temperament. Oh, yeah. Yes, you were. This is the house of your outward behavior, your likes and dislikes. The first house both the way you present yourself to others and the way the outside world sees you. It often indicates your physical characteristics, especially your head and facial features. Sometimes called the house of self-interest, it denotes what you want in life and how you go about achieving it. The place in your chart at which this house begins is the most important point in your horoscope, for it determines all the other houses that follow. In astrology, the first house is thought of as a giant lens through which the rest of your chart is seen and interpreted. Oh. So the second house is the house of money and possessions. It relates to what you own in life, what you will acquire, your income, and your financial prospects. This is the house of movable possessions, the things you physically take with you as you move through life. The second house also tells how you feel about money and possessions and gives a clue to the kind of objects with which you will like to surround yourself. To a certain extent, it gives a picture of your earning power and ability to handle money. The second house often shows which activities and projects are a lucrative source of income for you. Who rules my second house? Hey, my second house is ruled by Taurus. And oh, I forgot to mention something. We'll talk about more in the next slide, or maybe the one after. Sometimes in your natal chart, there will be astrological signs completely missed. And so in my natal chart, there is no Aries and there is no Libra. They're intercepted houses. We'll go into what that means later. But so my first house is in Pisces, and then my second house goes all the way to Taurus. So it's a little bit weird. So Freedom Girl, with that information, I would go to cafeastrology.com. You put in your date of birth, the time, and where it was, and they will give you a free, like 27-page natal chart, and they'll tell you all of your planets, all of your houses, your major angles, the weight. They'll weight your chart, like you have this much fire, this much cardinal, all of that. And then there's pages and pages and pages of like what that means, as well as your aspects. So that's a really nice free resource. And if you have all that information, it will really help you. The third house. This is the house of communication. The third house relates to your immediate environment in three major areas: self-expression, family ties, and day-to-day travel. The house governs the way you think, speak, and write. Logic, memory, and manual skill are in its domain. The third house often indicates what kind of early education you received and your ability to study and learn. With relationships with brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, cousins, and neighbors are part of this house's influence. Short trips and the vehicles for this type of travel are governed by the third house, especially travel you do for work or education. And my third house is Gemini. So that's really good. That's the natural ruler of that chart. But again, all my charts here are empty. The fourth house, house of home, governs your home life in the past, present, and future. Indicates the kind of home you had in childhood and your relationship with your parents. What you have brought into this life from your ancestors is in its domain. What you have brought in the present, the fourth house relates to the kind of home you make for yourself. Your current domestic affairs are under its influence, as are real estate holdings and the ownership of land. This house also rules over the closing years of your life, the kind of security you seek for old age. The fourth house is one of the most mystical houses in your chart, for it represents what you keep protected and secluded from the rest of the world, the place you call home in both a physical and an emotional sense. And my fourth house is also Gemini. So that's pretty funny. So when you have an intercepted house, it means that two signs will appear twice in your chart. So I have two houses ruled by Gemini, which is Mercury, my third and my fourth house, which makes sense because I spend a lot of time communicating. That's my major, I'm a nurse, so I do a ton of education. I a YouTuber, and I do a lot of speaking here. It's always been a major part of my life. So that's something else to look at. Everybody's chart is going to be different. Even, I guess, even possibly twins, depending on how, like what, because the rising signs are changing pretty rapidly. So something to consider. The fifth house is the house of creativity and sex. The fifth house rules over everything you do for pleasure and to express yourself creatively. Your sexual nature, which is the most basic creative urge in your psyche, is a large part of its domain. Children and the joy you receive from them are governed by this house. The fifth house also relates to entertainment, holidays, amusements, and the arts. It rules love affairs, new undertakings in life, speculation and gambles, and games of chance. It is the house that expresses your artistic talents as well as your ability to enjoy yourself in life. In childhood, pets and playmates are part of this house, for it holds sway over all the things to which you instinctively give affection. This is the house of your heart. So for me, it's Cancer. Sixth house. This is the house of service and health. Often called the house of service to others, it indicates your need to help others and to be useful in the world. In the old days, it governed a person's attitude towards servants and those of inferior standing. In the modern day, this house rules your relationship with the people you work with those who are your subordinates, and with your employers. The sixth house also relates to your state of health and especially applies to illness brought on by worry or emotional upsets. The house signifies whether you have a robust or delicate constitution and what kinds of diseases you may be subject to. Ooh, I think that it is Leo, which as far as that goes isn't that great because Leo rules the heart. So hopefully I am not going to be too susceptible to illnesses like that. The seventh house is the house of partnership and marriage. On a personal level, it relates to your husband or wife, the mate you chose in life. It often indicates what kind of marriage you will have and whether you might divorce or remarry. This is your house of partnerships, not only in marriage, but also in work, business, legal affairs, and sometimes in politics. It covers legal unions or contracts you enter into and both sides of a question or dispute. The seventh house concerns your ability to work harmoniously with others. Paradoxically, it also governs what astrologers call your open enemies, those who are usually your adversaries in business or professional world. The seventh house is the opposite of the first house of self. Here you blend your personalities with other in order to pursue shared goals. So mine is ruled by Virgo. Eighth house is the house of death and regeneration. The eighth house is one of the three mystical houses in your chart, including the fourth and the 12th. And one of the most difficult to understand. Sometimes called the house of spiritual transformation, it rules the life forces that surround sex, birth, death, and the afterlife. It concerns legacies and what you inherit from the dead, both materially and spiritually. Money that belongs to your partner and taxes and debt are also in this house's domain. The eighth house may give some indication of the conditions surrounding your death, although the precise time always remains a mystery. Surgery is governed by this house, since it relates to regeneration. This is the house of psychic powers and occult studies and knowledge. And my eighth house is ruled by Scorpio. And I have 2 planets there, so it is heavy in my chart. Ninth house. This is the house of mental exploration and long distance travel. The ninth house can be thought of as a widening of the third house. Study, travel, and mental pursuits are expanded in the ninth house on a much wider plane. This is the house of the higher mind. Under its domain are higher education, philosophy, and the study in depth of profound subjects. Long journeys of both the mind and the physical body are controlled by this house. It concerns actual travel to foreign lands and business interests in other countries. It governs the meetings of foreigners who expand your way of thinking and also the study of languages. The ninth house rules your public expression of ideas and is therefore the house of publishing and literary effort. And I am also a Sagittarius. 10th house. This is the house of career and public standing. Its opposite house, which is the 4th house, rules the home. The 10th house rules all matters outside the home, your profession, your status in the community, and your public reputation. It has been called the house of ambition, aspiration, and attainment. This house also reveals in what esteem you are held by others. The 10th house reflects your image as shown in the power, position, and honors that you may achieve. It is an outward expression of your talents, the way you accept responsibility, the place you arrive at through your own efforts. This house has a great influence on your material success in life. And mine is Sagittarius with three things: my Jupiter, my Neptune, and my South Node. 10th house. This is the house of friends and of hopes and wishes. Unlike its opposite house, which is the 5th house, with its concern for immediate pleasures, the 11th house has to do with long-term dreams and goals and with intellectual pleasures. This house governs your involvement with groups and organizations that have to do with your work, profession, or family. The clubs and societies or political associations you belong to are under its domain. This house often indicates the kind of friends and acquaintances who can best further your interests and objectives in life. The 11th house reflects your ability to enjoy other people. On its highest level, this house represents the harmonious working together of all people, each one doing what best expresses his or her individual personality. It is the house of idealism and vision. The birds in this tree right here are going nuts. And mine is Capricorn. 12th house. This is the house of secrets, sorrows, and self-undoing. It is the most mystical of all houses, the final house, the end of the circle. This is not necessarily a negative and gloomy place, but it does define the limitations placed on your life, including by yourself through self-undoing behavior. This house governs disappointments, accidents, trouble, and self-defeat. It rules unseen forces, secret enemies, escapisms, silence, hospitals, and prisons. The 12th house has been called the house of karma, the house of spiritual debt, for it contains the rewards and punishments for the deeds one commits in the world. It is associated with psychic powers and the ability to discover at last the meaning of life. And mine is in Aquarius with my moon. So we talked already about the rulers, which basically the same. And then we can talk about the angular houses. So when they say angular houses, we're talking about house 1, 4, 7, and 10. 1, 4, 7, and 10. So they indicate that you will achieve some kind of prominence in the world. So having planets there indicate that you will achieve some kind of prominence in the world, depending on which one. So if you have them in the first house, some kind of prominence around yourself and personality. The 4th house, some kind of prominence around your home and the latter part of your life. The 7th house, some kind of prominence around fortune and partnership or marriage. I have Pluto in the 7th house. And then the 10th house, honor and position in career. And I have Jupiter and Neptune there. So what might help you is knowing all of these different things. You might make a note. So I have little notes about where I fall into each of these categories so that I don't have to piecemeal through everything. I have all the information there and I can synthesize my chart really quickly. I don't have it memorized because I have so much other stuff to do. I'm going to take a bite of cheese. I'm sorry. Succeed in houses. It's this image here. So basically the 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 11th houses. Planets in these houses indicate that you have stability, willpower, and fixity of purpose. So the 2nd house of finance, the 5th house of creativity, the 8th house of regeneration. So that's where I have 2 planets, and the 11th house of hopes. And then finally the Caden houses. So your 3, 6, 9, and 12. So planets in these houses indicate that you are mentally active and communicate your ideas. So the 3rd is communication, the 6th is employment, and in the 6th I have 3 planets. The 9th is mental exploration, which I have 1 planet, and the 12th is subconscious, which I have the moon. Then you also have other divisions called, and I'm going to tell you them. So the 4 houses of life are the first, self, the fifth, creativity, and the ninth, which is learning and conviction. Those are houses that surround you as a person. Then you have the houses of wealth. So second is Taurus, which is property. Six is employment and work, and the 10th is career. So those are the things that have to do with wealth, because those are the ways that you earn, the way that you come into life with it, wealth. The ones that pertain to relationships are the third, which is communication, the seventh, which is partnerships, and well, the third is also relatives, and the 11th, which is friends. So relatives, partnerships, which like relationships, marriage, and friends. And finally, the houses of endings. So the fourth house is for the latter years of your life, your golden years, supposedly. The eighth is death and regeneration, and the 12th is spiritual reward and death. And then this book goes on to say, like, what I like about this book is like it just lays it out for you. Do you have this planet in this house? And so that's one of the best things about this book, is that it's super direct that way. So you could easily have a really in-depth read from yourself just by getting your free natal chart, jotting everything down, and then having just reading up on what that means for you. It's really in-depth that way. Houses represent the 12 universal departments of life. So the houses are fixed and the signs revolve around them. And we talked a little bit about how the houses are divided because they're not actually all the same size. That's fine. We talked briefly about intercepted houses. So like meaning you'll have two of the same rulers for two different houses, as opposed to actually having 12 zodiac signs in your house. Trying to find if they have anything that we haven't already covered in this chart, and I don't think so, but I'm just really we've already covered all of this, I believe, so I'm going to leave it at that. So this one's more of a this one's not going to be like this one. They're both very important, really well with each other, but they're very different. So this one says, you know where your planet is, and it gives you a blurb about what that means. It tells you what it means in general, as if she is reading your astrological chart. This one's more of you learning how to understand that and use the building blocks, so the elements, the zodiac signs, the energies, to understand it for yourself and to interpret it for yourself. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of well, but I needed both of those to really get a depth of understanding. This is so cute. This is my journal, my astrology journal. It's full of notes. So that was actually a pretty short line because they're not as not that they're not as complex, but the houses are not as well known. I think that we all really know the zodiac, and so that's really a dense, long life because there's a ton of information in there. And I feel like the planets are similar in the way that they are way more known than the houses. The houses were always a very ephemeral topic to me. Oh, there is something I wanted to mention. First of all, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please, please, please. Thank you so much. But also, for those of you, and it looks like this is a small live, and so basically the only people here I think are my friends who are subscribed anyway. But I have made a lot of progress on my webpage. hounddoghollow.com. And something that I have been wanting to do for ages and that I finally gotten around to starting is I have a shop tab on my page, and I have been uploading things that I want to let go of onto the shop tab. So you can purchase things that I'm letting go on there. Lori, yeah, for sure. But that's good. I'm married to a Scorpio. They have a lot of good in them. Every chart does. And so I finished. So I have almost every. I have one book on there right now because I'm working through my book reviews before I put any books that I don't like on sale. And the reason is I want to just give it one more chance to kind of read through it and say like, is this going to stay in my metaphysical library or not? And so far I've done 4 and they're preloaded, ready to go on Wednesday, which is the day of the week we decided would be the book review day. And it's going to be all of my astrological books because, like I said, we're sunsetting that topic. And then we're going to move into, I think, ancestral books. And then I was thinking whatever thing that we deep dive into next year, or I deep dive into, that will be the thing that we cover. But I haven't decided just yet because I have so much to do. So it's kind of like I'm working on all of these things at once. And I've set up a workspace in the front room, so it's really nice because I can work when my husband and son are asleep, and that's really helpful. So please check that out. All the stuff will be coming. I have almost all of the decks that I'm going to sell up there right now. If it says out of stock, it means that somebody's in the process of buying it. If the process goes through, it'll be taken off completely. If for whatever reason it falls through, then I'll put it back in stock. So keep that in mind. The other thing is there's 3 tarot decks that are going to be for sale on there that are not up yet. And I'm waiting for the deck review to come up on my channel before I put them for sale because it just feels like I should review it before I let it go. The next thing I think that I'm going to work through is oh, thank you. It's a review of this book. I got this book when I was 19 years old, and it's still super helpful. Super, super helpful. You can look how beat up it is. I have used this thing to pieces. It's really helpful. And I will say it's a misnomer because I didn't have everything I needed to understand astrology from that book. So, and I do say that in my review, and I go through, that's one thing that I will show you with my book reviews. I'm showing you the chapters and what's in it because I hate when you go to Amazon and you're like, am I going to like this book? Especially with things going into lockdown again in my state. You really want to look. I like to look at a book and see like, do I like the imagery? Do I like the words? Do I like the chapter? And with Amazon, you don't get to do that. I hate that. So what my goal is, every book that I have, which is almost, well over 100, I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you the contents and talk to you about it. And you make your own decision because, again, I'm not the one who's going to be like, this is garbage, unless like I think that it's selling you something like immoral, and that's loose, or just like not good. Freedom Girl, I've been into astrology since I was young, like probably a preteen. And I still don't understand it. I think that astrology is one of those topics that you could study your whole life and you could really be really good at it. But I don't think that any one person can master it. It's so big and it has so many facets. But I do feel like I have an intermediate level of knowledge, or an advanced beginner even. And that's enough for me. I feel like if I can understand myself and my little family, I'm cool. And one of my dream goals in the long term is to have an astrologer for my webpage. But I have to make some money. No offense. Like I wouldn't lie to you, but I am reducing my hours in January because of school, because as you get close to the end of grad school, at least in medicine and health care, it ramps up. in time commitment. And so to balance those two things, I'm going to have to do some navigating, which means I will, have less coming in. And so I need to get some of this, all of this, not that. I love that. That's new. But this is a box of decks. It's empty of the ones that I don't want. So those are the ones that I'm going to keep, which is still a lot. The ones that I'm going to sell is down here. But as you can see, there's stacks of stuff everywhere. And it's because I got excited. It's because I'm literally going through all of my surplus. And I got to photograph it, which I have this area set up right here for that. Photograph it, upload it, price it. I will say that the shipping is, I had to put a flat shipping rate. I'm so sorry, but right now, for whatever reason, the USPS is charging a lot of money. It's like $8, even for their smallest little box. But what I basically do is I look up the price, the MSRP, and I cut it in half. So I'm giving it to you at a better price than you will get anywhere else. Just because I want it to go somewhere where it's going to be used and it's going to be loved. Oh, thank you, Lori. I'm not trying to rob you guys blind. I will say that if you buy one item, then the shipping is flat shipping for one little box, which is normal. If you buy more than one item, depending on the size, then it charges you for shipping for each box, which makes sense. Like if you're buying things and I have to use a bigger size box up, then obviously the next size box up is like $15.74. So it is $8 times 2. I can't change the USPS prices. They're just crazy. But if I could squeeze both of those things into one container, I will send you a DM and let you know. Because I'm not trying to rip you guys off. I love you guys. You're my people. So just be advised. If you want multiple things, send me a private message. Oh, Lord. We can't talk about that here. No controversial stuff here because I already say lots of bad words. And I don't want them to end this live. And they have ended my live right in the middle of one once. And I got banned from eBay and they wouldn't even tell me why. And I'm like, I'm just trying to sell tarot decks, but I guess you guys are anti-witch. I don't know what happened there. I put all my tarot decks on eBay, and I was like, yay. And they sent me an email permanently banning me the next day. And I'm like, okay, I didn't even know what happened. And they're like, don't bother responding. We won't. And it's just like, okay, eBay. So then there's a function on my website that has a shop that you can sell things. And I guess I learned quickly to do that. I don't know why. What the hell? What's wrong with magical metaphysical books? I have no idea what happened there. Crazy. So the next thing I'm going to go through is my candles, and there's not very many, but you guys know I have, so Etsy, somewhere, I don't feel like Etsy is really fair because I don't make any of these things. A lot of the things that I have surplus on were handmade with love and intention by like Nicole at Witch's Moon, or Melissa at Sacred Space Crate, or Christy at Sugar Muses. Like, these women put a lot of themselves into those things. And just because I don't need them, I want to still be super respectful about saying, like, I have so many little beeswax candles from the Witch's Moon because I've gotten them for $2.50 and I love them to pieces. But I didn't make those. So I don't want to go onto Etsy like portraying myself as a creator of this content when I didn't. But I am going to be making little bookmarks out of oracle cards with like a little ribbon. And those will be something that I make. But if it's made by me, I will tell you that in the description. But the candles, I have so many of those little rolled. They're like a sheet of dyed beeswax that are rolled, and they're from like, I've gotten them in the Witch's Moon. I've gotten them in Weevolve. I've gotten them in all of the boxes. You guys know I've gotten hundreds of boxes over the last few years. And I have like, I don't know, 70 candles. And I'm not going to get through them. So what I'm going to do next, so I've got the book, We've got the oracle decks. Next is going to be candles, and I will give the person the option to have a little little like novel thing, and it's basically like a little charm that you put on the front of the candle, and it might be like an acorn, or it might be whatever it is that I have that you would be interested in. And those are going to be cheap or reasonably priced, I should say, because I do have a huge surplus. I did not create them. Some of them, I do have a ton of chime candles, and I'm debating whether to put those on there. I love candle magic as well too, and I'm burning candles like literally everywhere right now, especially in the winter. I love candle magic in the winter, but I have a surplus, and the things that I have surplus of, they're going to start coming up on the page. So check it often, and please guys, check out my content and tell me what you think, because I really value your opinion. And so right now, it's got some bullet journal updates, which I decided to just put those on my channel just because I want to share those things and I enjoy it, but they didn't do well on YouTube. And I'm working on cheat sheets for all the information that I share here, because some of my lives are 2 hours long, and I'm just like going and going and going with all of this information. And for some people, for some people who just can't listen that long, or they come in and out, it's a lot of information. And so I've been working on making like summaries, and those are on there for a couple things. But my main push soon is to get those all for the astrology information. So like one of them will be like, what is a duality and what does it mean? And remember, we talked about dualities are like the directive, the receptive, the masculine, the feminine, the yin and the yang, and how every single sign expresses itself in one of those ways. It either directs energy out or it receives energy in. And that will be one blog entry. And then the next blog entry might be about as a planet, about the fourth house, and then so on and so forth. So that way, as you need the information, you can just click into it, and it'll be a quick blurb that just about anybody can love, read, and understand. And that information will still be accessible to you on my page, even though I won't be doing any more of these lives. Because I want to go into another topic, and I don't know if I want to. I don't know. There's so much, and I don't want to I don't know if I want to commit to herbs and plants. I don't know if I want to commit to tarot. I don't know if I want to commit to. I don't know what I want to commit to, but something is going to change, and it's not going to be astrology anymore. Who's my bottom B? I love you, astrology. Me and you. It's going to be something else so that I can learn something new and share it with you as I learn. Anyways, guys, I'm rambling. Does anybody have any questions? Is this information useful to you or helpful at all? Thank you guys. So I always appreciate you joining me. And I appreciate going through this journey with you, and I appreciate you being on my channel and my Facebook page and my Instagram page and my website. I love you guys, and I appreciate that. And oh, thank you, Lori. I gotta go cook dinner. I'm gonna make fried rice. And I'm also making stock. So that's gonna be one of my, I don't know if you guys remember, but I had like a series of Waste Not, Want Not. And that's one of the major things. I never waste food. I hate it. I hate wasting food. I hate it so much. I try. I'm going to say that 90 to 95% of everything that we eat, every food item that comes into this house gets eaten. And if it doesn't get eaten by me and my husband, it'll get eaten by our dogs or our livestock. And especially things like on vegetables, the peelings, the ends, vegetables that are just not quite perfect. Those will either go into the bag in the freezer. I have a bag that I keep in the freezer for all the things, and I put it for stock, or they'll go to feed the birds who just love them. But I never waste anything, and I wanted to share that in a video with you guys, Waste Not, Want Not. But it's also a magical how-to, because cooking is such powerful magic. Like, there's a reason that your mama's food tastes better than anything, and it's because of her love in it. And I believe that with all my heart. So even though I can make sancocho and red beans and rice and sofrito and bacalaitos, it doesn't quite taste like my papa's. And that's okay, because even when I make it and I smell it, I think of him, and it's like he's with me at the table. And that's worth it. And I hope that I leave that feeling behind with my progeny too. Thank you, Margie. I love you guys. I gotta go cook dinner. And then I'm gonna keep working on uploading stuff into the shop. So please keep posted. I will post on Instagram. Like, I'm gonna post on Instagram pretty soon, just saying like, hey, I added these things to the shop, check it out if you're interested in, and it'll be a picture of each item that I added. And that's totally like, hey, I am actually wanting that deck and I don't want to pay full price for it, so I'm going to head over to Brandy's page. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe. I love you so much. Tons of content. I literally have a video loaded for every day. I will see you next week, this same time, for Get Ready With Me for the full moon / lunar eclipse. Please join me. Love you guys. Blessed be. Have a wonderful day. Bye.